Welcome, everyone. If you could take your seats, we're going to start today's session with a little visualization exercise. I want you to picture the Second World War in the air. For most of us, that mental image is probably dominated by a single silhouette. You know the one? It's that low-wing monoplane with that beautiful, instantly recognizable elliptical wing shape. We are, of course, going to do a full anatomical review of the Supermarine Spitfire. But I want to be clear from the get-go. We're not just here to talk about history or, rattle off battle stats. We're here to look at a marvel of engineering adaptability.
It really is. It's a perfect case study in how to build a machine that just outlasts its own era.
Right.
You have to realize aviation tech in the 30s and 40s was moving at a breakneck speed. Most planes designed in 1935 they were obsolete death traps by 1941.
Totally outmatched.
But the Spitfire is the exception. It is a machine so fundamentally sound in its DNA that it stayed in production before the war, during the entire conflict, and even for a bit after it ended.
And that is just a staggering statistic when you think about it. It was the only Allied fighter in production for the entire duration of the war.
Exactly. It started life with, 1,000 horsepower engine. It finished the war with an engine pushing over 2,050 horsepower.
All in essentially the same airframe.
All in the same airframe. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens because of a stroke of pure genius at the drawing board.
And that genius was R.J. Mitchell.
Hmm.
But before we get to the fighter, we have to understand where this design philosophy even came from. He wasn't originally designing dogfighters, was he?
No, not at all. And this is crucial to understanding the Spitfire. To understand the plane, you actually have to look at the water.
The water.
Through the 1920s, Mitchell was obsessed with the Schneider trophy. This was basically, think of it like Formula One for seaplanes. He designed the Supermarine S.5, the S6.
These were racing planes.
Pure racing machines, built for one thing: raw, unadulterated speed. They were sleek, they were powerful, and they taught him that drag is the enemy.
So the Spitfire's lineage is really a racing pedigree.
Precisely. You have to slice through the air, not push it aside, but it wasn't a straight line from the racers to the legend. We have to talk about the ugly duckling.
The Type 224.
Yes. We usually try to gloss over it, but it's a necessary part of the story. The Air Ministry put out a specification, and Mitchell designed the Type 224. It had these gull wings, like a Stuka,
Right.
a fixed undercarriage, so the wheels are just hanging out in the breeze. And it had a steam-cooled engine.
Steam-cooled. That sounds like a plumbing nightmare.
It was. It was heavy, it was complex, and frankly, it was a failure. It topped out at maybe 230 miles per hour. Not gonna cut it. But, failure is often the best teacher.
So he went back to the drawing board.
Completely. He created the Type 300, worked with Rolls-Royce on their new PV-12 engine, which became the Merlin, and that prototype flew in March 1936. And from that moment on, everything changed.
And just to give everyone a sense of scale, we're not talking a small batch here.
No. Over 20,000 units were built. 20,351 to be precise. You don't build that many of something unless it works. Everywhere.
Okay, let's unpack the anatomy of this thing. Module 1, aerodynamics and the wing.
Right.
If you ask a child to draw a Spitfire, the first thing they get right is that wing shape, that ellipse. It's beautiful, but why that specific shape?
It all comes back to drag. Specifically something called induced drag. When a wing generates lift, drag is the byproduct. And theoretically, a perfect ellipse is the most efficient shape for minimizing that drag.
But there was a more practical reason too.
A much more practical one. Mitchell wanted the wing to be incredibly thin to cut through the air.
But a thin wing is usually a weak wing, or there's no space inside for anything.
Exactly. How do you fit the main spar, the landing gear, the guns, inside a super thin wing? Well, with an ellipse, the wick of the wing, the chord, stays substantial as you move out towards the tip. So you get the internal space you need for strength and guns while keeping the cross-section thin for speed.
A brilliant trade-off.
It was. A nightmare to manufacture, of course, compared to a straight wing like a Hurricane, but the performance was worth it.
Now this is where it gets really interesting. The wing wasn't just a flat ellipse, there's a twist involved. This is the washout.
Correct. And this is a critical safety feature. The angle at which the wing meets the air changes. At the root, near the fuselage, it's set at +2 degrees. But as you go out to the tip, it twists down to -0.5 degrees.
Okay, that seems counterintuitive. Why twist the wing down at the tips?
It's all about how the plane stalls. A stall is when the wing stops generating lift. If the whole wing stalls at once, the plane just drops. If the tip stalls first, one wing drops and you snap into a deadly spin.
So the twist prevents that.
It ensures that the root of the wing, the part near the pilot, stalls first, while the tips are actually still flying.
So the pilot gets a warning.
Exactly. The pilot feels a shudder, a buffet on the tail. It's tactile feedback saying, hey, you're about to fall out of the sky. But crucially, because the tips are still flying, the ailerons, which are out at the ticks, still have air flowing over them.
Which means the pilot still has control.
He still has roll control even as the stall begins. It made the plane incredibly forgiving. And holding it all together was the construction. A monocoque, stressed skin design. The aluminum skin itself is carrying the load. Light, but incredibly robust.
If you are enjoying this video, please watch it until the end. This greatly helps the channel and encourages us to continue our work. Okay, moving on to Module 2. You can't talk about the Spitfire without talking about its heart, the Rolls-Royce Merlin engine.
A true legend. A 27-liter V12. It's the sound of freedom for a lot of people, but early on, it had a fatal flaw, especially compared to its rival, the German Brave 109.
This is the carburetor issue.
Yeah.
I love this story because the solution is so wonderfully simple.
It is. The Merlin used a float carburetor. Just like in a toilet cistern, it uses a float to regulate fuel. If you push the nose of the Spitfire down hard into a dive, you get negative G-force.
And fuel floats up?
Right up and away from the intake. The engine would cough, splutter, or just cut out completely.
Which is the last thing you want in a dogfight.
It was deadly. The German pilots knew this. Their engines were fuel injected, so they didn't care about gravity. A German pilot with a Spitfire on his tail would just push the stick forward and dive. The Spitfire follows, his engine dies, and he's a sitting duck.
Enter Beatrice Schilling.
Yes, a brilliant engineer. She designed a simple metal diaphragm, basically a washer with a carefully sized hole in it. You fit it in the fuel line, and it restricted the flow just enough to stop the flooding under negative G.
They called it Miss Schilling's orifice.
A rather cheeky name, but it worked. It was a stopgap, but it allowed Spitfire pilots to follow the 109s into a dive.
But even the Merlin wasn't enough forever. The war demanded more and more power. So they needed the Griffin.
The Rolls-Royce Griffin. This thing was a beast. It was 37 liters to the Merlin's 27. It was physically bigger. If you look at a Griffin Spitfire, like a Mark 14th, you'll see these bulges on the engine cowling.
They had to hammer out the metal to make it fit.
Literally. And the power jump was massive. We're talking over 2,050 horsepower. To handle it, they had to go to a huge 5-bladed propeller. But for the pilots, the transition was dangerous.
Why? Just the speed.
The torque. The Merlin's propeller rotated clockwise. The Griffin's rotated counterclockwise.
Oh, I see. Muscle memory.
Exactly. On takeoff, a powerful plane wants to swing because of the torque. Pilots had spent years, thousands of hours, instinctively applying right rudder on takeoff to keep a Merlin straight. You do that in a Griffin Spitfire.
You'd swing right off the runway.
Violently. You had to completely relearn everything and apply left rudder. It got a lot of experienced pilots out.
Okay, let's shift to Module 3, combat roles. The Spitfire was like a Swiss Army knife. It started with just machine guns, but that changed fast.
It did. We classified them by wing type. The first was the A-wing. 8.303 Browning machine guns. Sounds like a lot, but against a German bomber's armor, it was like throwing gravel.
They needed more punch.
So they brought in cannons, the B-wing. 2 20-millimeter cannons and 4 machine guns. Those cannons fired explosive shells. But the real game changer was the C-wing, the universal wing.
It was modular.
Exactly. You could swap configurations, all machine guns, mixed, even 4 cannons. It simplified logistics enormously. Later on, the E-wing brought in the big .50 caliber heavy machine guns.
Now, the Navy saw this and said, we want one, and we got the Seafire. But it wasn't a perfect fit, was it?
Oh, it was a forced marriage. They added arrestor hooks for carrier landings, folding wings eventually. But the Spitfire has a very narrow undercarriage. The wheels are really close together.
Which is fine on a grass airfield.
Right. But on a pitching, rolling flight deck in the North Atlantic, it's a disaster waiting to happen. It was very unstable on landing. The Seafire had a really high accident rate compared to purpose-built naval planes like the Hellcat. It was just too delicate for carrier ops.
Then on the other end of the spectrum, you have the photo reconnaissance versions, the spies.
The PR marks, these are fascinating. They stripped out everything. Guns, armor, sometimes even the radio. They filled the wings with fuel and installed high-res cameras. They were painted this special PRU blue to blend in with the sky. Their only defense was speed and altitude.
They couldn't fight, they just had to run.
And we can't forget the jet age. The Spitfire actually fought against jets.
It did. A Spitfire Mark 14th was the first Allied plane to shoot down a Messerschmitt Me-262 jet fighter. It's incredible. Proved a well-flown piston fighter could still be lethal. Right. Let's take everyone into the cockpit now.
Yeah.
Module 4, the pilot's classroom. We have the official pilot's notes here. This isn't as simple as turning a key. Talk us through starting the engine.
It's a whole ritual. First, priming. It depends on the air temperature and the fuel you're using. If it's freezing outside with normal fuel, you might need 12 strokes of the priming pump.
And you have to do that while the engine is turning over.
Vigorously. Then, once it catches, you warm it up at about 1200 RPM. You have to check the magnetos, the ignition system. You switch one off, watch the RPM drop. If it drops more than 150 RPM, you've got a problem. You don't fly.
And once you're up, you're managing the supercharger.
On the later Merlins, it's a two-stage supercharger. There's a warning light on the dash. As you climb, the air gets thinner, so the supercharger has to shift into a higher gear, but there's an intercooler to keep the air from getting too hot. If that system fails, a light comes on, and the supercharger kicks back to low gear to save the engine.
And you lose a massive amount of performance.
Instantly. Now, let's talk about fuel, because the notes warn about the drop tank.
Right, the external tank.
This is a critical procedure. When that tank runs dry, you cannot just jettison it. The notes are very clear. You must select a main tank and turn the cock on before you drop the tank.
And if you drop it first,
The engine sucks air, it starves and dies. Immediately, you're now a glider in the middle of a combat zone.
wow. Okay, we talked about the stall earlier, but the notes highlight a specific danger with the rear fuselage tank.
It's all about center of gravity. They put fuel tanks everywhere to get more range, including one right behind the pilot. If that rear tank is full, the plane is tail-heavy. The notes describe a self-stalling tendency.
What does that mean?
It means as you slow down, the tail drops and the nose wants to pitch up on its own, which just deepens the stall. The pilot has to actively push the stick forward to fight the plane's desire to flip over.
Let's talk emergencies, the undercarriage jams. What do you do?
You have a backup. There's a red CO2 cylinder. You pull the emergency lever, and it blows compressed gas into the lines to force the gear down. But the notes are ominous. Once used, the gear cannot be raised again.
You're committed to landing no matter what.
No going around. And if you can't land, if you have to ditch in the water, the notes say land along the swell, keep the undercarriage UP. But the problem is the giant radiator scoop under the wing.
It would act like a brake.
Like a bucket. The notes say the nose is expected to dive underwater immediately on contact. You have to be ready to get out fast.
The machine itself demanded as much respect as the enemy. Finally, Module 5, global reach. We think of it as a British plane, but the whole world flew it.
It was truly international. The USAF flew Spitfires before they got Mustangs. We sent over 1,000 to the Soviet Union, Australia, Canada, South Africa, New Zealand. The Spitfire was everywhere.
And there's still some flying today.
As of 2025, about 240 Spitfires still exist, and around 70 of those are still airworthy. It's a remarkable number thanks to museums and preservation groups.
So when we look back, what's the legacy? It isn't just about kill ratios.
No, not at all. It represents a philosophy. It was a true pilot's airplane. It was sensitive, it was fast, it was beautiful, but it was demanding. You had to understand the engineering, the washout, the fuel system to really master it.
From defending Britain to the invasion of Europe, it evolved constantly to meet the threat.
It never stopped evolving. That's why it's a legend.
It really is the wings of a legend. If you enjoyed the video, you can subscribe to the channel, activate the notification bell to be notified about new videos, click the like button, and share the video with your colleagues, as this helps us maintain the channel. Thank you.